Hey everybody, Austin here again with a quick play. Today we'll be playing through Dynowarz, Destruction of Spondylus, a 8-bit NES side-scrolling action game by Bandai. Apparently released in 1990, despite the title screen saying 1989. Funny enough, I actually did some quick research before doing this playthrough, and apparently this game, despite being Japanese developed, was not released in Japan. It was only released in North America, apparently, so NES exclusive. Win for the North American NES. Kind of interesting. There's actually quite a few NES games that were developed in Japan that were also not released in Japan. It's very interesting to me. So, but yeah, we're going to go through this game. It should take us about a half an hour to do so. Not a very difficult game. I don't predict us dying very often, if at all. It is one of those games where I feel like basically anybody should be able to get through this game. You do get infinite continues. When you get a game over, you get kicked back to the title screen, but you can just select the continue options, Ghosts and Goblins style, and just kind of credit feed your way through the game. There is no specialized final boss, or really any specialized bosses that are all that interesting or difficult. So again, it's one of those games where I just feel like just about anybody should be able to get through this. So the game is kind of half-baked, actually, now that I think about it. But it is still a fun game. It's not the best in the system, but it's far from the worst. It's just kind of there. There are some decent production values here and there, and there are some interesting concepts as well. And I think if you're a big fan of NES action games, I think it's still worth going through and playing through at least once. And yeah, we're going to do just that. We're going to go ahead and play through it once for this video. I have actually played this game multiple times on my channel. I think the last time I did so, though, was probably 5, 6, or 7 plus years ago at this point. Normally, I try not to cover games I've done again a second time unless it's been a while and I can, get better video quality, or if it's been requested, or if I'm getting lazy and I'm just trying to pump out filler content, which arguably I kind of am trying to do. But to be fair to Dynowarz in particular, despite covering it multiple times on my channel, I did actually get some requests recently to do it again. And so yeah, for those of you guys that requested this, here you go. This is for you. So, but yeah, for anybody new to my channel, this is my quick play series. We just fire up a game and see what we can do with it. This game, again, like I said, it's a fairly easy game by NES standards, and so I don't foresee us having any issues. So with that, let's go ahead and hit that start button and just jump right into the game. So Dynowarz, interestingly, is actually divided into 2 different gameplay styles. You first start off as Dr. Proteus, and you have these single screen modes, or single screen sections, I should say, where the goal is to get to the end and destroy a computer that is infected with a computer virus. However, on this first one here, the goal is to get to the end and jump into your Cybersaur's dinosaur, which is basically, I'm just going to call it a dino mech for the rest of the playthrough. Enemies do drop power-ups. That is a energy power-up right there. Unfortunately, these spikes do hurt me, so grabbing that energy power-up didn't really do me a whole lot of good. But yeah, here we go. This is onto our second set, or second style of gameplay. Now, the screen actually scrolls here in the Dino Mech sections, and what you see here is about what you're going to see for the rest of the game. The backgrounds do change a little bit. Gameplay stays mostly the same, though, for the rest of the playthrough. Now, in the very beginning, you do have a fist, and you can punch things, but as you can see very quickly, enemies will drop weapons. So I have the fireballs right here. I'm going to actually hold on to that. I'm going to hold on to that for about as long as possible, because it's a fairly useful weapon. It's a nice spread shot, and for those of you guys that have followed me for a while, you'll know that I like my spread shots. Now, I don't want to knock this Triceratops off the ledge there, because I wanted the weapon that he had to drop, which was a upgrade for my fireballs. And in order to upgrade your weapon, you have to actually pick up the same weapon again. Otherwise, you'll end up just switching weapons as opposed to upgrading them. Now, the hitboxes are also a little weird. You'll notice that one of my spread shot bullets is actually going through that big dino, and that is because the second an enemy gets hit, they have a lot of invincibility frames. Now, they don't blink or anything like that, or make any, specialized sound effects in indicating that they are invincible. It's just something you have to get used to when you're playing this game. And I went ahead and actually ran into that mine. Not really a big deal. That weapon right there is a bomb. It's like an overhead grenade style attack. Not the most useful thing in the game, at least at its low level 1 upgrade level. And this is our first boss here. Not anything particularly special. It's also a little on the cheap side of things. Basically what ends up happening is you attack that boss and he just dives straight towards you. And there's really no way to avoid him. You're pretty much forced to take damage. But he drops a key, and then that key allows us into that structure that was in the background. And we revisit the Dr. Proteus format. Now we have more moving platforms and stuff like that. This part is actually a little tricky. I found the most reliable way to get through this section is to just tank your way through these turrets. That left turret in particular is constantly shooting at you, and what ends up happening is you'll try to jump past it, you'll get hit by one of its projectiles, and then you'll fall into the endless pit, and then you'll have to redo the stage all over again. And this is our first computer. Again, these computers are apparently infected with a virus, and your goal is to go into each of these main structures, apparently on different planets in the solar system. The Spondylus solar system, that's actually where the name Spondylus comes from. You are, I guess, going from planet to planet and destroying every planet? So I guess you really are destroying Spondylus, the solar system. Kind of an interesting story, I guess, by NES standards, but still. Normally I don't care about story in these games, but I was trying to look for all the information I could find on this game before doing this playthrough. Because Dynowarz is a very repetitious game, and so there's not a whole lot to explain about it, honestly. I can try showing off different weapons and things like that, but really I just want to get through the game and just show you straight through the game. That weapon I just jumped over is the Launch Fist. It's actually a very useful weapon. It does this little loop-de-loop. You shoot it across the screen, but then it loops upwards. And there we go. We got balls, level 3. Fireballs, level 3. Now it's just a nice 3-way spread shot. Very, very useful. And it's actually very powerful as well. Let's go ahead and snipe this guy from a distance. That's another Launch Fist right there. Don't really want it. We're gonna go ahead and just stick it out with the fireballs here. Now, thankfully, this guy that's gonna run towards me, he will slam into this wall and then just jump backwards. He can't really seem to do a whole lot about it, and that's the bomb weapon again. Now, there is one more weapon in the game. It's the laser, which is kind of interesting. But one thing I don't like about the laser is that you have to wait for it to go completely off the screen before it will allow you to fire it again. And so I just find that the fireballs is a little more useful. It goes off the screen, I think, a little bit faster. It also covers a lot more screen space, so especially for the pterodactyls that start off higher into the air, it's easier to hit them. Now, there's a mechanic in this where there we go. If I'm on a platform that's just slightly above a weapon below me, I will grab it. So what ended up happening is I pressed the jump button, and for some reason, I guess the hitboxes are really big, and they go slightly below these platforms. And it registered that weapon collect, even though it didn't look like I should have actually picked up the weapon. So that is something I definitely wanted to explain. This game does have some weird mechanics, and I guess if those big dinos get to the edge of the screen, they actually end up going off the screen, which is kind of a bummer. The big dinos are usually the ones that drop weapons, so if you're trying to upgrade, say, your level 1 Launch Fist here, you definitely want to kill as many guys as possible. Now, I guess what I'll try to do is just upgrade my Launch Fist so you can sort of see what that's like. There's the laser. I'm going to go ahead and just skip the laser. Now, the cool thing about the Launch Fist is that you can actually get close to enemies, and instead of it looping all the way back around towards you, it'll actually just come straight back to you without looping, and you'll be able to get some rapid damage, which is pretty cool. And there we go. Got our key. Back to a Dr. Proteus section. Now, unfortunately, when you, ooh, ate some of my inputs there. Yeah, there is a lot of slowdown on these Proteus sections, unfortunately. You really want to take your time. Try to get rid of these turrets from a distance. I want to go ahead and try to destroy this mine. The mines take a long time to kill in this game, even when you're in dino form. There we go. I don't know why their hit points are so high, but it is what it is. But yeah, these Proteus sections actually are not all that long, except for the final one. The final level has a fairly long one that's relatively challenging. Well, relatively speaking, compared to the rest of the game. You'll notice that there's, like, not a lot of risk here. You've got this floating platform. You can try to, you know, jump on that to get closer to that computer. But you've got spikes on the bottom. The spikes just do a tiny bit of damage. It's not a lot of damage. It's not like it's not like Mega Man where they kill you instantly. So, the game definitely eases you into those, you know, infected computer fights. Alright, jump on the platform, onto our next planet. As you can see, the game does give you passwords. Now, I was looking up on the cutting room floor before doing this video, and apparently there's a few cheat codes that you can enter. Not really cheat codes, but passwords you can enter to access things like a sound test menu. You can access a dino viewer, or basically an enemy viewer. Kind of neat, but it's not really anything particularly special. And that's a laser. Don't really want the laser. And we got ourselves a barrier. So the barrier is basically just a second health bar. So, you know, if you thought the game couldn't get any easier, it actually can. All you have to do is just pick up the barrier, and then you've got double the health. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and switch back over to the fireballs, which will be disadvantaged for just a little bit. But one of the nice things about having one fireball, as opposed to 3, is I don't have to wait for my projectiles to go off the screen. There we go. Now, the pterodactyls in this game, they'll actually dive down to wherever you are on the screen. So when I see a pterodactyl on the screen, what I like to do is actually jump, because, you know, it starts diving to the point where I am on the screen. Now, this one's actually going backwards, which is nice, and that's a laser. Don't really need the laser. So here we go again. I'll demonstrate this once more. I'm going to jump, and it registered the pickup, even though the weapon was below me. It's the same thing if you land... Say this weapon is like where I'm standing right now, and I jump and land on the top of this platform, it'll still collect the weapon as well. So you have to be really careful about that if you don't want to switch your weapons. Switching weapons can be a detriment in this game, because if you're at level 3 in one weapon, and you switch, it defaults that next weapon to level 1. And then you're stuck at level 1 for a little while. Which, you know, as you can see, it's not really a huge deal, but it's, you know, still a little frustrating. And, I was right on top of that guy when I killed him, so he dropped the launch fist. So I'm right back down to level 1 launch fist, even though I think I was at level 2 on the fireball weapon. Launch fist is kind of cool though, because again, you can get close to them and do some rapid damage if you time it just right. You let it come back to you, then you just kind of wait a split second, and then you use it again, and it will just come straight back to you. Alright, these platforms fall, so you have to watch out for them. You have to time your jumps pretty well. Otherwise, you'll end up just falling to your doom. Now, some of these turrets you can actually destroy from a distance, just like this. You just line up your shot correctly. Alright, let's go ahead and try to get these. Some of these jumps can be a little tight. And it looks like that fourth enemy actually despawned off the bottom of the screen. That actually happens quite a bit on these Proteus sections. Alright, boss time! Now what I like to do with these is get to the edge here and just snipe it from a distance. It works perfectly, and its projectiles never hit you. However, there's always a couple floating enemies flying about, being a little random in their movements, and so I try to get rid of them first before I do anything. Now you'll notice that any dangerous enemy that you may have missed is actually gone after you destroy the computer. It's kind of cool. Nice little touch there. Alright, we have to do this platform again. Man, who designs these places? Alright, on to our next level. Stage 4. Alright, still stuck with our launch fist, unfortunately. Not really unfortunately, the launch fist is a good weapon. And honestly, I think all the weapons in this game were actually fairly decent. Like, even the beam here. The only issue is that, you know, you get downgraded back to level 1 every time you grab a new weapon. Let's go ahead and switch back to our fireballs. The fireballs and the launch fists are the most commonly dropped weapons in the game, which is why I'd recommend just sticking with them. You'll be at a disadvantage if you try to switch over to your bomb or your beam, because they aren't dropped nearly as frequently. There we go. That was a bomb. Pterodactyl, again, you'll notice that I jumped into the air the second I saw it, and it dived down towards the middle of the screen, which is exactly what I wanted. Same with... Ooh, I mistimed that one. And I got stuck with the launch fist again, because I destroyed the enemy when it was right on top of me. And this is just extremely cheap enemy design. There's not a whole lot you can do about this. Maybe jump over here, but it also shoots projectiles, and it shoots them relatively rapidly, too. It's, such a weird enemy design. Such weird enemy mechanics. We've lost a little bit of our health bar, but it shouldn't really be a big deal. Try to jump over these spiky things. And that's a bomb. Don't want it. That's a beam. Now, you'll notice that I'm actually sort of tapering my shots a little bit, and the reason is again, these enemies do have invincibility frames, and if you try to attack them again before their iframes have worn out, your weapon will just go straight through them. See? Just like that. So you don't want that to happen. You want to just wait for their iframes to wear out. You want to time your attack. Let's go ahead and stick with the launch fist for a little bit. The launch fist actually can be pretty useful against pterodactyls in particular. Ugh. See, now they're giving me 2 fireballs. Let me take the fireballs. Alright, another beam. Alright. Pterodactyl. You notice that I actually just went to the upper part of the screen. It's because my character was high up on the screen, and it only goes so far down. And if I stay on the ground floor, though, it will dive all the way down, and I'll end up taking damage. So you're basically baiting the boss's trajectory, which is kind of interesting. I always like it when you can do that. Alright, got the turrets. Now you can actually hug, or I should say kiss, the top of the screen, but you won't go quite as far if you do that. So on those moving platform sections, you want to try to jump across when you're slightly lower and not, you know, less likely to touch the top of the screen as you're moving. And I still haven't gotten a third weapon upgrade on these Dr. Proteus sections. And just like with the Dino sections, these computers do have invincibility frames as well, which is why you're not seeing me shoot my shots like quickly back to back. What I'm doing is I'm just tapering my shots like this, so every hit actually does damage. It's a very simple mechanic that is in a lot of games, or I should say a very simple, I don't know, skill? I should say. Very easy to take advantage of in these old games in particular. It's not relegated just to these old games, though. Lots of games, even modern games, have enemies with invincibility frames, and so the idea is, you know, just maximizing your damage potential as quickly as possible without over-exerting yourself. Yeah, you could sit there and mash the fire button as quickly as possible, but it's not doing anything because half your shots, if not more, are just going right through and not doing anything. So you're better off just timing your attacks slowly, keeps your hand from wearing out, and also feels more skillful in the process because you're doing it. You're working around the game's mechanics deliberately and intentionally, and it just feels better. So as you can see, Dynowarz doesn't really change up a lot over the course of the playthrough. And unfortunately, I'm going to go ahead and bump into that mine, because jumping on top of that launch fist would force me to grab it, unfortunately, and I definitely don't want to do that. I want to stick with my level 3 balls. Fireballs. Yeah, Dynowarz is, it's one of those games that, you know, I enjoyed it a lot as a kid. I mean, I enjoyed a lot of things as a kid that I don't necessarily enjoy as much as an adult. And I still like this game, but it is, as you can see, very basic. Or I should say, very repetitious. Maybe not necessarily basic, but very repetitious. It's kind of the same thing, just back and forth over the course of the entire game. Not a ton of enemy variety. And as you saw with some of these bigger enemies, they can be a little on the cheap side of things. Lots of forced damage. But yeah, I do still have a soft spot for this game. I did play, you know, a decent bit as a kid. I did have a friend that had a cartridge of it, and I got to borrow it. And so I do have experience with it from, you know, that point in time. And it is a game I've gone back to, you know, several times over the years. But usually what ends up happening is I do one run, I'm like, okay, I got my fill, got my nostalgia fix, and, you know, I got to re-experience the game from start to finish. And then I don't go back to it for like another 5 years. So just one of those kinds of games. Some really cool concepts that just could have been fleshed out better, I think. But still not a bad game. And if you're the kind of person that's actually collecting NES cartridges, with the goal being to actually play them, you know, it's a fun game to mess around with once every now and then. So it's still worth having in like a personal collection, in my opinion. I have it in mine. But one of the things I don't like about covering games like these is I find that I end up not having a whole lot to talk about. Because, again, the game isn't that challenging, at least for somewhat of my skill level. where, you know, I can beat Battletoads pretty much 100% of the time every time I play it. So, you know, as someone that can do something like that, this is very, very tame and a little on the boring side of things, you know. But I did have some requests to do this game again on my channel, and so I do take requests into consideration. If anybody out there has requests, you know, of games they want me to play here, I can't make guarantees because I haven't played every game under the sun, or if I have played certain games, I'm not very good at every game under the sun, so, and it takes time to learn certain games, especially the more difficult games you guys recommend. But something like Dynowarz, I've played quite a few times over the years. It's not a very challenging game, and so when I got a couple of requests more recently, I was like, you know what, yeah, I could do another quick play, or do a quick play of this game. I did a couple of Let's Plays back in the day, which is basically this quick play format, just with a different name. But it's been years since I've done a full playthrough on this channel. Let's go ahead and tank this mine, because I don't want that bomb. Alright. So again, you launch off to a new planet, you basically start outside, and then you go through a cave. You go back outside, you fight a boss, you get a key. You go back to the internal structure, you fight the computer as Dr. Proteus, and that's the entire game in a nutshell. It just repeats that over and over and over again. So, yeah, like I said, not a whole lot to explain with this one. There aren't a lot of, like, useful tactics I can talk about. You know, I can talk about them once or twice, and then that's pretty much it. And you know what? I've got the barrier. I can just walk through these enemies, even. I could probably walk through the rest of the stage without actually having to do anything. You know, with that said, that in mind, I'm actually kind of curious what a speedrun of this game looks like. I wonder if there are ways to actually manipulate certain power-up drops. I assume there probably aren't. I want to say power-ups are actually static in this game, meaning that they're always dropped from the same enemies at the same time. Pretty sure this guy is supposed to dash towards you as well, but it seems like some of the enemies that dash forward might only do so if you get close to them or within like a certain vicinity. I don't know. I'm just speculating. Maybe that Brontosaurus-like enemy doesn't actually dash forward at you. Alright, got an energy pickup. Still have my barrier from the previous level. One thing that is nice about these Proteus sections is that your weapons do carry over, and your energy. Now, one thing that is a little irritating is that when you take damage and you've got the barrier, there is actually no sound cue or anything like that. No visual cue, no sound cue, and so unless you're looking at your barrier energy, you won't know that you're actually losing it. Just take our time. That's really the key to a bunch of parts in this game, is just taking your time. Go ahead and just sit on the edge, and again, just taper my shot. That way every projectile actually connects and actually does damage. Now, you have to be careful on the way back, because if you die on the way back, you have to do this entire level over again. The Dr. Proteus section. The game is actually quite generous with how it implements the continue system. Like any other more brutal game, would probably send you all the way back to the very beginning of the dino section. Which honestly, with this game's difficulty, I would actually say is probably, well, see, I don't want to say it's like a decent compromise or a decent balance, because it is very easy to die on these sections in particular. So there's a lot of precision platforming here. But, the game is so easy otherwise, it's like, I don't know. Alright, I think this might actually be our final stage in the game. But, again, just more of the same. Different coat of paint. It's not like the level design really gets all that more challenging. Alright, jump over both these weapons. The pterodactyls have a tendency of dropping energy. Yep, there we go. Which I do not need. And that's actually a problem. I'm going to have to pick this up. I would not have been able to make that jump without picking up the beam. Let's go ahead and switch back over to Fireball. Go ahead and grab that. There we go. Now, one nice little mechanic there. You'll notice that I was able to jump off that power-up and still transition to the next screen. There are some games where when you hit the edge of a screen and you're mid-air, it'll actually force you back down to the ground before you can actually transition to the next screen. So, thankfully, this game actually allows you to jump over, say, a weapon. Such cheap boss design. It's like you're just forced to take damage, and that's just never fun to me. Wow, you can actually go underneath him. Well, I just learned something. Alright, this is probably our final section. Play a little safe here, though, because, you know, these Dr. Proteus sections just get longer and longer as you go through the game. But, again, it is more of the same. Same 3 platforms, again and again. And surprisingly, I still haven't upgraded my gun to level 3. It's basically the same thing as level 2, except now you can shoot 3 projectiles. Or I should say, 3 sets of projectiles. Honestly, it doesn't really help all that much. Having gun level 2 is perfectly suitable. You have enough flexibility with 2 sets of projectiles to, you know, get into a brand new screen and just rapidly shoot and clear out a bunch of the flying enemies. Alright, boss time. And that's it. Let's go ahead and grab this barrier just in case. It's not really going to do me any good at this point, but that's okay. All right. And there we go. We just beat Dynowarz. Like I said, I didn't think we'd have too much trouble with this one. Given that it is a fairly... well, it's definitely on the easier side of NES action games, that's for sure. But yeah, that is Dynowarz from start to finish. I know probably not the most entertaining playthrough, but you know, hopefully it at least provided some kind of nostalgia for a few of you guys out there, and for any of you thinking about playing this, it gave you an idea of what the gameplay's like, and a sort of explanation of how some of the mechanics work. It's not a very mechanically complex game. It's not a very difficult game, so it is just one of those playthroughs where... well, I should say, when I do playthroughs like these, I just kind of like, I trail off halfway through because there's nothing to talk about. So, but yeah, that was Dynowarz, guys. Again, hopefully you enjoyed this. I'll be back with some more, hopefully challenging playthroughs sometime in the near future, along with live streams and stuff like that. So yeah, that's about it, guys. I don't have anything else to say. I guess I'll catch you later. Until the next one, take it easy.